Yeah, what's going on, everybody? I just want to share this information. A lot of stuff happening pre-election here, and uh, wanted to share this with people that have subscribed to my channel. So here you go.
The National Guard in Washington, D.C., businesses and homes around the downtown area, Washington, D.C., are starting to up. I'm going to show you some pictures of businesses getting boarded up. And in Portland, Oregon, police are giving a press conference about possible unrest in the next coming days, weeks, maybe months, or years to come. All because it seems like the 2024 elections is causing these National Guard to be activated in at least Washington State, and I expect other states to possibly follow very, very soon. It's almost like as if a hurricane is coming, and a hurricane's coming in a few days, and these governors start giving out the warnings, right? And some of them declare a state of emergency, right? It seems like that's kind of what the situation here. So we'll see what other states follow suit, but it's definitely worth monitoring. Businesses in the area are being boarded up in Washington, D.C., not Washington State, though I just said Washington State. But in this Washington, D.C., folks, you got businesses that are starting to board up. This is the McDonald's in Washington, D.C., near the White House. This is people boarding up the storefronts. Now, I can tell you in 2016, I was in Washington, D.C., covering the inauguration of Donald Trump. And what I can tell you is what happened was, and these are businesses that, are boarding up. What I can tell you what happened then was I was out there covering it, right? Covering the inauguration of Trump. But then suddenly there was a group of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people dressed in all black and masks. And they just went in mass through the area of downtown DC and just started busting out buildings with their bats, their sticks, and they even set a limousine on fire. I filmed that. I have lots of video of that. It was wild and crazy, only because maybe the other side didn't like the other party being inaugurated. But I think something is brewing here. We hope there's no civil unrest. We don't want civil unrest to happen, right? But it looks like this might be headed that way. Although, Inslee, and I'm going to show you his memo, said this is for precautionary measures. Precautionary measures. But why in Washington State? Well, Washington State's across the United States. A lot of people that are not from the United States kind of gets Washington State confused with Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C., nation's capital. Everybody in the government is there, right? It's the government base. But then you have Washington, D.C. on the Pacific Northwest, right? In that area, in the last few weeks, we have had reports of ballot boxes being burnt. Now, we covered.
What do you all think? What do you all think is going to happen here? This is nuts. It's going to be bad, I think.
That on JLR Investigates. Vancouver, Washington, and Portland, Oregon. People are putting some sort of explosive devices on the side of ballot boxes and setting them on fire and burning these ballots. So maybe Inslee wanted to do it because of that. Fox, the local Fox 13 News in that area put out because of arsons, but I think it's something else. Inslee activates National Guard for election week after ballot box arsons. And it says in a letter sent to Major General Gent Welsh of the Washington Military Department, Inslee said the presence of the National Guard members is purely a precautionary measure in response to warnings from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. This comes after two ballot boxes in the Pacific Northwest were recently set on fire by devices, according to the FBI. An arson investigation is underway after hundreds of ballots were burned in Vancouver, Washington, and Portland, Oregon. No suspects have been identified. So it could be precautionary, or it could be for something more. Do they anticipate civil unrest? Now, ballot box burnings in the Portland area and Vancouver, we speculated that probably the people that were responsible for that was organized, probably, a Antifa, radical left type organizations that might be responsible for this, Occupy Wall Street descendants, Earth Liberation Front people, Animal Liberation Front, Dakota Pipeline protesters, that type of group of people. The election's going to come in a few days. Hopefully it goes smooth and well, and the person that loses properly concedes. That loses does not concede to this election. I think it's going to set off a possible firestorm throughout the country, and cells will be activated and operated. Cells meaning supporters of one particular side, or just people that just want anarchy, opportunists. Could be a combination of both. And then these people come out of the woodwork and start doing who knows what, when, where, and why. So basically the guard will remain on standby from Monday, November 4th through 7th. And of course, that can be extended. Now, this is just one state thus far. One state thus far. Is any other state going to follow suit and activate their National Guard? Now, speaking of Washington, D.C., there's a couple. There's a media journalist. He's a YouTuber. His name is Penguin6. He got some good stuff sharing what is going on down in Washington, D.C. as far as the boarding and everything like that. Not much media is talking about it, but News Nation put out in the last 16 hours about the boarding, the businesses being boarded up in Washington, D.C. And, that concerns me a little bit. The boarding, the businesses are like, hell, we don't trust what's going on, and we're just going to board up just in case things get wild, And then you got the Capitol building. Usually they put fences around the Capitol building. They have to certify the election in a few months after the election results, and whatever side on the opposite, the losing side, might want to take it or something, or go up there and try to stop the election. So I expect fencing also to be put up in areas, maybe fencing around, more extra fencing around the White House.
The weekend, the final weekend before the election, some businesses in our nation's capital are boarding up their windows, boarding up their doors right now, just in case of civil unrest next week. News Nation's Tom Dempsey joining us live from...
Hey, what happened? What happened? What happened?
From Washington, actually have on their radar right now.
Hey, good morning, Marky. D.C. police saying that there are no known credible threats at this point related to possible election-related violence. But this morning, we're standing only about a block from the White House right now, and you can actually see some of the concerns of the possibility of election-related violence. What you're seeing right now are businesses literally boarded up out of concerns that we might see large-scale protests, maybe even potential riots in relation to the election. And as you can see, these are multiple businesses. That McDonald's just down the street, we go there from time to time to get coffee between live shots here, but it's boarded up right now, like I said, due to concerns that we might see a strong response, potential election-related violence to all this. And again, D.C. police saying there are no known credible threats at this time, but they are taking precautions, and the whole department is going to be deployed next week to keep things safe. News Nation was actually here when we saw firsthand workers boarding up some of these storefronts. Like I said, these are large businesses like a McDonald's here, and small businesses alike taking precaution due to concerns of possible protests or violence related to the election. The chief of D.C. police also recently said that 3,300 officers will be deployed across the district next week, all of them working 12-hour shifts or more. They'll be keeping close watch on business districts like where we are, as well as polling locations, all to ensure safety and smooth voting.
We will not tolerate any violence of any kind. We will not tolerate any riots. We will not tolerate the destruction of property. We will not tolerate any unlawful behavior. Offenders will be arrested and will be held accountable.
DC police also say that they can call in officers from surrounding areas should the need arise. But Marky, I remember being out here personally reporting on the 2020 protests we saw here in DC in response to the death of George Floyd, also on January 6th. And I think there's a lot of leftover anxiety and the concerns of possible destruction or damage that we could see, that we saw similar to those past two events. And some of that anxiety and those concerns still around here in DC, Mark.
Yeah, still lingering. We're praying for peace and quiet and calm next week. Tom Dempsey, thank you so much, live from DC this morning. Thanks for watching, everybody. Go to
boarding up businesses, folks. What is that about? Now, again, 2016, I was out there at the inauguration, out there in the streets of DC covering it. I was just freelancing and doing my video and stuff, not taking any position, just out there. January 6th, up there in the streets of DC, I was up there and saw it all. Thank God I never went inside the Capitol or even attempted to go inside the Capitol, but I saw a lot of things out there, folks, all over the streets, and got all types of videos out there of January 6th. George Floyd type riots and stuff like that. And maybe you would call them protests. Some people call them riots. It just depends. Some of them were both, out in the streets covering that stuff. These are some really issues here that really draw sides to sides. And, people are passionate for their stuff. And this is a potential for a potential disaster. So it seems like DC is starting to take precautions here. Now, I told Magnolia, and I said, I want to kind of go up to D.C. in the next week to see. That's kind of what I want to cover. There's nothing really going on really big in the true crime besides Richard Allen that we're covering, the murder case. But I was like, I kind of want to go up to D.C. and see what happens. If anything happens, at least we'll be able to document it and see what happens. Because I suspect.
Hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please subscribe, and I will keep you updated as I hear more. Have a good day.